Hi, my name is Noah Karandanis, the editor-in-chief of PSU Vanguard, and I am here with Wally, the chair of the Board of Trustees for Portland State University. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Noah. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. So I just kind of want to start with some general questions. For a lot of students, this is going to be their first time seeing you speak outside of a public comment at a board meeting. Or your bio on the board website. And so we did some digging, as good journalists do, and we do know that you are a student journalist, former student journalist at University of Washington. And I just kind of want to start with the question of how did your years as a student journalist impact your university experience and also your professional trajectory?
My university experience as a student?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I had been on the student newspaper in high school, so my interest in journalism preceded my time at University of Washington. I thought that I wanted to major in accounting when I first started school because, I came from a background where I needed to get a job when I graduated, and I was looking for something that I thought would give me a good opportunity to have some good career opportunities. What I didn't realize was I really hated accounting. And it took me about 2 years before I finally decided, even if I could make it through and get my degree, this is not how I wanted to spend the rest of my life. So at that point, I had an opportunity to join the staff at the University of Washington daily newspaper. And that was something that was really helpful to me in terms of getting through to my bachelor's degree. When I moved out of accounting, I moved my major to political science because that was something I was interested in, and I had taken some poli-sci classes while I was in the business school. And I guess I would say that having that sort of extracurricular activity while I was studying really made the college experience a lot more enjoyable for me. I made good friends with other reporters and editors at the newspaper, and then I decided my senior year to take the LSATs, and that was partly a function of, since I wasn't going to be an accountant, I didn't have great job prospects with my political science degree, so I thought I'd go to law school. It put me, the experience I had as a reporter for the newspaper, though, was really invaluable to me in terms of my law school experience and then as a lawyer, because one of the things I won't say I perfected it, but it helped improve my ability to write and to explain more complicated issues in ways that were understandable, and that's kind of what you learn to do in law school as well. And that ability to write and to write well was also really important to me in my career as a lawyer. So I commend you guys who are spending time learning the craft of journalism, because I think it's a good background. If you can write well, it makes a big difference no matter what field you go into.
Absolutely, and building off of that comment of taking complex ideas and simplifying them to make it accessible for students who are unaware of what the Board of Trustees is, what its mission is, what its function is on campus. Could you explain what you do as a trustee member and as a board as a whole?
Sure. So the Board of Trustees is created by Oregon statutes. Each of the public universities in Oregon has its own board, and the charge of the responsibility of the Board of Trustees is to, at a high level, oversee the governance of the university. It's different than the actual management of the operations of the university, which is entrusted to the president and her leadership team. The board's role is to oversee the way the university is being run by the president and her team, and we have some specific obligations under the Oregon laws, one of which is to appoint the president and to be responsible for his or her performance. We also have responsibility for setting the annual budget for the university and the tuition rates each year. So those are specific tasks that the trustees had, that the board has as a board. As trustees, we act as a board, we act as a group. So we don't have authority as individual trustees to make decisions for the university. I, as the board chair, have the authority to speak on behalf of the board, which doesn't mean that when I talk, I'm not representing that every board member would agree with everything I have to say, but that is a role of the board chair. But generally speaking, the trustees act as a group. And that's the way boards of directors work in all sorts of other organizations, whether it's large Fortune 500 companies or nonprofits or private colleges have boards of trustees. And that's the function of the board, is to basically be responsible for the governance.
Okay, thank you. I think that many students on campus, when there are more bombastic things going on campus, whether it be protests, whether it be, the announcement of cuts, there's a negative view that is cultivated surrounding the Board of Trustees because of how opaque it seems to the average student. So what do you think has fostered this reputation, and how is this board planning on bridging that gap between board, PSU community, your average student relationships?
Well, I guess I would start by saying that I think it's important for everyone in the community to understand that the trustees all are serving in a volunteer capacity. We don't get paid to be trustees, and we have volunteered to take these roles because in whatever individual paths have brought us here, we developed a passion for PSU as an institution, for the mission of PSU, and we want to serve that mission in our capacity as trustees. So when members of the university community disagree with something we're doing, I hope they realize that we are all trying to do our best to do the right thing for PSU. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. Right. As far as the communication part of it goes, I mean, that's a really fair point. I think one of the ways that we can do a better job of communicating is doing things like this, talking to you. We have tried, I think, in some of our more institutionalized efforts, the board chair sends a post-board communication out responding to public comments, trying to explain some of the things, some of the reasons for decisions. We also rely heavily on the president and her team to communicate the reasons the university is moving in particular directions. And that's not so much to explain why the board is doing a particular thing, but why the university is doing something, and the board would typically be behind that. Right. But we can always do better. So if there are ways that we can improve, we're going to try to do that.
Absolutely. And so kind of going from this more just broad what the board does to talking about just the issues of the day on campus. Many students are unaware of the contours of Pivot and what exactly this initiative means for the university. Could you explain, its main goals and how the board, as the governing body, plans to help execute those goals?
Yeah, so it's somewhat complicated. Pivot is a part of the process that the university is going through to try to deal with the fact that we are now in what we call a structural deficit financially, which means that for the past few years and for the foreseeable future, we are not projecting that we are going to have enough revenue to cover our costs. And that's not a sustainable model for any organization in perpetuity. PSU has reserves that we have established that when PSU had its first independent board, which I think was 2012 when those boards started. It was either 2012 or 2013. The board adopted a policy that we would build up and maintain reserve funds to help us address temporary shortfalls, emergencies where we needed to draw from the reserves. It's kind of like an emergency savings account. Right. And we have had, for the past decade or so, fairly healthy reserves, but we got to the point a couple of years ago where we were having to start to draw those reserves down. We have a policy that the board, again, this was the board before I joined it, but is still our policy of maintaining a certain level of reserves, which is a function of our basically how much money we're spending every 3 months.
Right.
And it's enough to cover those expenses. So if expenses go up, the reserves need to go up. If expenses go down, the reserves go down. To get back to your question, Pivot is part of the effort that the president is leading at the request, at the direction of the board, to eliminate the need to draw down reserves to the point where we feel like we'd be at an unhealthy level. The Pivot process was led by the provost and the vice president for research and graduate studies, and was an effort to identify areas within the Office of Academic Affairs and the Research and Graduate Studies group where we had programs, whether it's particular majors or particular courses of study or programs or certificates, where we felt that the amount of money we're spending to maintain those couldn't be justified given the level of demand and the financial outlook going forward. So Pivot was designed to try to identify, in collaboration with faculty and deans and department chairs, what programs we could effectively reduce, or in some cases possibly eliminate, in order to deal with the fact that we can't afford to do everything that we're doing. Our student credit hours basically declined by about a quarter from where they were when I joined the board in 2019. So you can't really sustain that level of decrease in the product you're selling, basically, and the resulting loss of revenue, and keep the cost structure the same. It has to be reduced to meet what you've got, what you expect to bring in. So Pivot is a part of that process, and then there are also some other processes outside of academic affairs that the Vice President for Finance is pursuing on the non-academic side of things to address possible cost reductions there. Does that help?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. And so how many board members voted for this current budget, and what was it, a unanimous vote passing just like the current mission? Or
well, the last budget we approved was this year's budget, so we approved the budget annually, and I don't believe that the vote to approve this year's budget last spring was unanimous. I'd have to go back and check to make sure, but I would say the vast majority of the board was supportive of the budget that we are operating under right now, and I expect that to be true. We'll vote on another budget at our June meeting, and I expect that to be true again.
Okay. And you had mentioned that there is a number of factors going into looking at, the cost, how to save costs when it comes to eliminating departments, certificate programs. It's in collaboration with faculty. I'm wondering what metrics particularly are being used to determine what departments are facing what amount of cuts, because we've heard verbiage that these cuts are holistic or being viewed holistically, and the metrics are taking into account the whole picture. But I'm wondering if you could shed light on the particular metrics being used to determine we are going to cut this department or propose to cut this department.
Yeah, so that is a great question, and this is an opportunity for me to, I think, talk again about the role of the board versus the role of the administrative leadership. So I can't answer that question because that is not the kind of level of responsibility the board gets into with respect to particular programs. Our responsibility is to set expectations in terms of how to operate the university in a fiscally responsible manner. It's something we discussed with President Cudd when she was interviewing for the job, so she understood when she took the job that this was going to be part of the expectation. But it isn't the role of the board to get down into the specific metrics that the president, the provost, the vice president of research and graduate studies have decided to employ to decide where to cut. So I can't answer the question about whether the metrics are holistic or how they should apply to particular programs. Those would be questions to, I think, ask of President Cudd or whoever she felt would be the most well prepared to answer the question.
Okay, thank you. And I am wondering, what are the estimated savings with the implementation of Pivot?
Yeah, well, I don't know what we're going to get just from the Pivot part of it. What I can tell you is that as of a year ago, we were told, the board was told, that we were $35 million above our revenue in terms of our cost structure. And so President Cudd announced, I believe it was in August, there was a town hall that I attended, a number of members of the university community attended, when she announced that that is the number that we are going to need to deal with. That's the reality, is that given where we are now and what we can reasonably expect over the next few years, we have to reduce our costs by $35 million. Now, how much of that comes, excuse me, through the Pivot plan, how much of it comes through other efforts that might be made, I can't tell you for sure. The board's directive to the president, though, has been that she said, we can't do this all in 1 year. We said, okay, that means we're going to have to draw our reserves down below the level where a lot of board members are comfortable. But we said, but we need to be able to address this issue over a 2-year period. So by the time we get to the 27, 28, by the time we get to the end of the 27, 28 academic year, we need to have a budget that's in balance. Okay. So that's the goal. Okay. I don't know how much of it's going to come from Pivot, but I will say that, just trying to be as transparent as I can, I do know that Office of Academic Affairs is the largest single part of our spend, and of course most of our costs are personnel related. So there aren't a lot of ways that you can reduce the overall cost structure without eliminating some positions, and you can't eliminate, you have to eliminate positions within academic affairs because that's where a lot of the people are.
So in speaking with PSU AAUP's president, Bill Knight, he told Vanguard that better communication to high school students in the metro area and building upon our marketing budget, which President Cudd has been quoted as saying is less than a third of the recruiting and marketing budget of similarly sized universities, that investing in that marketing and that high school communication, as well as lobbying the state for more money, something which Cudd has been hesitant about because of the strings attached, such in the case with Southern Oregon University's emergency state funding. In essence, could the university avoid cutting departments and personnel, those positions that students interact with the most on a daily basis, through lobbying the state for more money and increasing enrollment through better marketing, or are these cuts an inevitability with the current financial picture at PSU?
Yeah, so there's a lot there in that question, and I guess I'll try to separate out a few thoughts. First of all, I want to go back to what the role of the board is and what the role of the president and the senior leadership team is. If the president and her leadership team believed that we could work our way out of this structural fiscal deficit without terminating any positions, she would be doing that. So the board's responsibility is to test what we're being told and ask questions and also to sort of observe generally what's going on in the world outside of Portland State. But ultimately, if we don't have confidence in the decisions that the president is making, the board's responsibility isn't to go in and start doing things the president's supposed to do. The board's responsibility is to either counsel the president to do something differently or get a new president. That's the board's role. We don't have any reason to believe that there is a way that we can solve the structural deficit without the reductions that are being discussed. And we have confidence in the president and her team that if there were a way to do that, we would be doing it. Now, I will say, looking out at some of the external considerations, I think President Cudd has talked about trying to increase the investment in marketing, and I think that I believe we will do that as part of this process that we're undergoing. I think we do not believe, she does not believe, and I think the board has no reason to doubt her on this, that is not by itself going to reverse the trend that we're having. We have headwinds that are being felt by universities all over the country. There are fewer high school graduates choosing to go to college. We have in Oregon in particular a challenge with the demographics and the fact that we have students who are in some cases questioning the value of a four-year degree. They may choose to go to community college. We've been told by the people who manage our enrollment efforts that we lose more students to the decision just not to go to college than we lose to other institutions. So I think universities generally could do a better job of telling the story about why a degree is valuable in today's world. We could also do a better job of helping our students get good jobs after they graduate so that the evidence speaks for itself. I will take issue with one of the comments that the president has been reluctant to ask the legislature for more money. That actually is not true in the scheme of things with respect to our efforts to increase investment in higher education generally. I think what people have been asking about is the fact that we have a university in Ashland, Southern Oregon, that has fallen into basically a fiscal crisis where they realized this year that they would not have enough funds on hand to actually make it through the next academic year. And they went to the governor and to the legislature and it basically asked for an emergency infusion of cash. We don't want to get in that situation. Right. And I think what the president is saying is we are not in that position, and it would not be appropriate for us to go to the legislature in our current situation and say, and we're talking about much larger numbers at Portland State than Southern Oregon was dealing with, and ask for $50 million.
Right.
Plus, it does not solve the long-term problem. If you have a university where the number of student credit hours has declined by the amount ours have declined, it is not going to be turned around overnight with more marketing dollars, and the state is not going to want to come in and give us a bunch of one-time money because it's not a one-time problem. So that's a long answer to a somewhat long question about why we can't avoid the reductions that we're looking at simply by saying either put more money into marketing or go ask the legislature for more money. And I respect Professor Knight's opinion, but you have to realize, the job of the union is to preserve jobs. And the job of the president is to try to determine what the best path is for the university as a whole. And the responsibility of the board of directors, we have a fiduciary obligation to think about what's in the best long-term interest of the university. And I realize people can have differences of opinion over whether or not we can get out of this without making the cuts. I don't believe we can. The president doesn't believe we can, and that's why we are where we are.
Absolutely. Bringing into consideration the enrollment decline and this flatlining of enrollment, with language of cuts and reductions, looking towards that future of where the board wants the university to be, what kind of growth-oriented measures is the board considering to increase enrollment, hopefully in years down the line, once this financial deficit, this budget deficit, is closed?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think, again, the board is not in a position to develop a detailed plan for how we increase enrollment, but we've certainly had conversations about things we can do. I mean, part of the strategic plan that we adopted a couple of years ago, I guess it's almost 2 years ago now, was to help our students ensure that they have clear pathways to success post-graduation. I think it's a really critical role for any institution of higher education, and Portland State in particular, to think about, how do we set our students up for success post-graduation? And I think we have an opportunity as an urban public research institution in a city that, while it's had its challenges, still has great potential to offer our students an educational product that gives them a better shot at post-graduation success, however they define it, whether it's graduate school, whether it's a job in the for-profit sector, a job in the nonprofit sector, teaching, whatever they want to do. We have an opportunity to do that because of where we are and the talents we have on our faculty, and frankly, the determination of our student body, which just, it's one of the reasons why I volunteered to do this job, because I'm just continually inspired by the quality of our students and the determination they bring to being successful. I think we can differentiate ourselves from some of our competitors effectively that way. I think the other thing that we could do is we need to work more effectively with the high schools, some of it on marketing and recruitment, but some of it also on maybe helping them introduce their students to some of the things they need to know about going to a four-year university while they're still in high school. Get into the high schools, let them know what the Portland State story is, and I think we could do more with that than we've been doing. So, but again, I always try to be careful not to overstep, because I keep coming back, and you're probably tired of hearing it by now, but this theme that the board needs to understand that its responsibility is not to get in and micromanage the president's job or the job of the vice provost for enrollment or the communications professionals we have. It's to oversee that, but we do offer suggestions.
Right.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
We should probably go ahead and wrap up.
Yes. So just to wrap up.
That was too long an answer, wasn't it?
No. Just to kind of round out this interview, and thank you for your time, Wally. And I wanted to give you the space to just give a message to students, to faculty, to PSU community members who are genuinely worried about the position that PSU finds itself in right now, and who are scared of hearing, reduction language and cost-cutting language. What would you say to those community members to just communicate what you, as the chair of the board, are concerned about?
Yeah, so what I would say is that we're all concerned about the impact of reductions. Nobody wants to see people who we value lose their positions. It is necessary, even in very strong organizations, to sometimes do that. And it doesn't mean that we don't have sympathy for the people who are going to be impacted by it, to say that we can do this and PSU will continue to be a great university. And I think that is the message that we need to make sure that I want the students, the faculty, the staff, the entire PSU community, and the community beyond Portland State to hear, is that this is a great institution and we can get through this and come out the other end I think, better positioned to serve our students, to be the kind of engine for social mobility that PSU aspires to be, and to be a part of the Portland recovery story. And that's where I think we're going to end up. I have every confidence in that, and I think the board has every confidence in the ability of President Cudd and her leadership team to get us there, and we're going to make sure that we hold them accountable to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much,
Thank
Wally.
you for taking the time to do this. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Great.
Awesome.